JT Gasso, what's up, buddy? How you doing? Welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Thank you. It's great to be on here.
Yeah.
Talk to you. This is legit.
It's fascinating. You saw me yesterday as we arrived in Norman, and you're like, this is going to blow your mind. And I realized that you and I had already kind of interacted without even realizing it. It's that coach's Bible study that you attend, right, on Zoom.
Yeah, with Mike Lynch, and I've just been on that for a couple years, and I kind of know your like basic story from like a distance, and heard you talk and speak, and so it was like when I heard, oh, Jason Romano's coming, Sports Spectrum coming, I was like, well, I kind of know what's going on.
Let's go.
It was funny.
Why is it being a part of a Bible study like that when there's a lot of other coaches that are on that? Mike Lynch is a pastor in Georgia, in the Atlanta area, and just such a good, rich, what's the right word, a resource, I think, and a voice to be speaking into coaches. Why is that important for you to be on a Bible study like that?
I know for me personally, it's good to have some sort of like camaraderie a little bit, and but also have just a weekly, a non-biased, like just another voice to kind of like tune into, because when you get into your routine, it's, you go, you practice, and you have the people you interact with at work, and you do church and stuff like that. And then here's this guy from Atlanta and all these people from across the country that are speaking, wisdom, speaking truth, and sharing God's word. And you're just, it's a good, like, little step out of your routine and kind of your world right there to kind of, get some good perspective.
Yeah, I told Mike I got to get back on there. I want to be on that. I'm not a coach, but if I'm invited, I want to come on and just listen every week, because I think there's a lot to learn. It's also a men's coach's study. Yep. And as far as I can tell, being around this program, are you the only guy around here?
We got a couple guys on staff, but as far as like coaching staff, then
So that's got to be important too. And it's like me at home. I have two daughters, or one daughter and my wife, two women in the house. I just need to spend some time with the guys sometimes too. Is that kind of how you feel sometimes?
Yeah, and it's good to kind of get like a little 30, 40 minute start to your week like that. So
yeah, I want to ask you about your Twitter page.
Okay.
Nothing that you posted.
Okay.
It's just what's in your headline. It says, I believe in God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, and he's given us new life. And I just thought, let's start there as we get into faith. Why is it important for you to put that on that page and to be public about your faith?
Well, that is just straight from, it's a song lyric, right? It's from,
is it Third Day?
It's been so long. It's been like that for so long.
I feel like it's Third Day might sing a song like that.
And I think my picture too is still my wife and I on wedding day. I just don't I don't like to update or post or like engage in it.
But it's still out there and it's still public. That's why I say that.
Yeah. I just that specifically, putting that out there, I just felt like when we're talking about like your social media page, you're talking about who you are, I thought that was important to put that out there first, right? Because that's who I want to represent first, in myself. And then if someone's like, hey, let's see what he's doing here, and you're putting your some sort of you out there, and I want to be tied to with my faith, like first thing. So
this team is so faith-filled. What is it about this program in Christ that seems so intertwined?
Yeah, I think it's the freedom that you have to live that, and I just think that in today's world, especially, it's become so results oriented. Like, you got to do this, you got to do that, and this is who, here's who's watching you, and you got to be doing this and doing that, and just being able to say, like, if you want to live that God life, for lack of a better word, you want to be a Christian, you want to do that, you can live that life, and the other stuff won't matter, but you can just be who you are and live how God calls you to live, and not have it affect just how you. Our big thing is we want you to live the life that you're called to live. And some people come in and they're not Christians, and that's totally fine. But the ones who have that freedom, and maybe they are in a space where it's like, I am afraid to I'm afraid to speak out for Jesus. I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid to do that. Now here's people around me that live that life and do that, then it's kind of freeing, in a sense, especially in today's world.
Yeah, it's a world that in many ways doesn't reflect that. And I think you guys not only reflect it within your program, but you got results to show for it. Like back-to-back championships, and you think about last year, that's where I kind of want to go with you. What was last year like for you, 2022, that season, that team, the culture? I mean, just, get out of the boat, all of the stuff that was happening within that program, and complete domination on the field when you lose, 3 games and you go all the way through. I'm not saying it was easy,
right,
but when you look at the end results, you're 58 or 59-3 and you win a back-to-back championship, probably the most dominant program in maybe all of college sports, not just softball. What comes to mind when you think about what was so special from last year?
That it wasn't ever about any of those things that you just said. We didn't talk about, wins, or, hey, we didn't have like a win counter that was like, here's 47, here's 48. And it was never about, any of those things. It was more about day-to-day process, like how are you going about your business? And what we come to find out is there's a lot of outside noise that comes with that too. And that was a big change that I felt with this team.
Yeah.
Was how much outside noise was coming into our world. And you go to a game and, I think the one thing about softball especially is it's such like a accessible sport. So like mom and pop, like an old mom and pop store. You can go to you have connections watching the players, and you're so close, and you watch them on. You can come to OU softball game and watch them up close and personal. Come to a fall, and you kind of get invested in these. And I think that's the great thing about college. You can get invested in players and know them more as people. But now what I found for this past year was that there was a lot of people that wanted to just come see OU softball play. So, now I'll never forget, it was at Kansas, and we get done playing, and there's like 300 people in a scrum trying to get autographs for us.
Wow.
And not saying like we deserve that. It wasn't about that. It was more of the fact that it's like that now on a road game, and people trying to find out, where we're at hotels and it was crazy. So it's like now you just have all these outside people that are just, injecting, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. And it's never been our focus. But now here's a bunch of voices saying, well, now that's my focus, and this is what I'm noticing. So blah, blah, blah. Can we get you to sign this? Can we get you to do this? And it was just a crazy, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. It was fun. But that was a big thing I noticed, was how big it got.
How do you keep outside distractions? And your mom does such a good job, I think, at this. She talked about this a little bit when we talked to her. But we live in a social media connected world from that perspective, where everybody can get a hold of anybody. Anybody can go follow this person or this person on Instagram and say whatever they want, good or bad. And that's a lot of outside voices coming in to kind of maybe distract you. How do you guys kind of keep this program really focused on, the most important thing, Christ, but also just your team and growing and caring about each other and not worried about stats or championships or the next thing?
I think it kind of towards the end of the season, the motto was do not disturb, and we put up our do not disturb sign. And I know, like, just for me, I can get into it's a little bit different, right? It's for coaches that
sure
every day you have, work is game planning and recruiting and this and that. And so you kind of have those moments where you just stop and you're like, I'm being taken away from reading my Bible because I'm doing this, or I'm, on the weekends, am I doing the things that I want to be doing? Am I spending enough time with my family? Am I right? And so with our players, it's kind of like a stop, like, man, I really am on social media a lot, or I'm not finding time to do whatever it is that I need to do. But when we put up that do not disturb sign, that helped a ton. It was right at postseason, started postseason. because everyone wanted a story and everyone wanted an interview and this, and we're spending all afternoon, morning doing interviews as we're doing an interview right now, right? But not to the level that we were doing it, in the spring. So just kind of going through that and having the perspective of like, do not disturb. I'm gonna, stay with my people, stay in my circle, do my thing, and then let's just do what we've been doing and not worry about all the other stuff.
JT Gasso is joining us here on Sports Spectrum. The sign behind you says championship mindset. What does that mean to you?
It's just blue collar, work as hard as you can, and just do that as consistently as possible every day. Some days you're not going to have it, but when you're just showing up every day, that's, to me, as easy as I can put it.
Your mom's the head coach. She's been here for 27 years. I think I was doing the math. You were, 7 maybe when she got the job, and you guys came to Norman. So you've been in this program, ingrained in this program for so many years. You obviously went into college and did some other things in different places, but ultimately you've been around this program since you were a little kid. Yeah. Now you're a coach and you have a really strong footprint on this team. What's it been like to watch the evolution of this program from the time you were a kid, really, and seeing what your mom and so many others have been able to build to where you guys are today?
Yeah, I think what's really unique about that is my time from, let's say, I was 7 to in post college.
23, 22, right?
Right. Yeah. I'd seen us lose, and I'd seen us not like a lot. We were still successful, right? We're still doing our thing, but there was always other teams that were better than us. Yeah. And I can remember going to Tucson and watching us get shellacked by Arizona, going to watching us play UCLA against shellacked by them, like just when I was in the 90s, just watching that happen over and over and over and over again, watching us lose in regionals. So then I think that 2000 championship was so special because then I was like, oh, this is what it looks like. These are the attitudes. This is the work ethic it takes to actually win. And this is from an outside perspective. So I always have that in the back of my head with where we're at now, was where we've been and where we want to go. It's just, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop because I can remember our home games being across the street at Reeves Park and me playing and being basically a little Stillwell to all the players over there. But I feel like going through that stuff and going through those years gave me a lot of perspective of like the history of this program and how much to get to where we're at now, how much sacrifice and hard work it took for all those players, all those teams for us to be where we're at right now, and kind of always kept that in the back of my head.
When does Christ become your Lord and Savior? Because I know your mom and your dad are believers, and they're probably the ones that begin that stage for you to be a follower of Christ. But at some point, it's got to become JT Gasso's faith, right, and not Patty Gasso or your dad's faith or anybody else's. It's yours. When does that transition and transformation take place for you?
I was lucky enough to be sent to a private non-denominational Christian school when I was in 8th grade. Back then, I thought I wasn't. I was like, God, this sucks. This blah 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 whatever.
Yeah, you're
right?
13 and like, get me out of here.
Right. I was like, man, I have all my friends in public school and this and that, and now I got to be in dress code, right? All this stuff. But what was great about it was I had like a subconscious foundation built in me. So I was at that age, being a normal teenager, you're going along with the crowd and you're doing all this stuff, and just going through high school and just being, even if I wasn't being as receptive, right? Like every day in math class, we would start out with verbalizing Sermon on the Mount, right? And so, we would start with one verse.
Blessed are the peacemakers.
Right, yeah, and and we're talking like King James Version, like thee, thou, thy, and I'm just like, right? But now I still remember it now, all these years later. But what I think what I was getting at is having that foundation in me, so that when I did hit college years, when I was going, playing and really knowing about myself, having Christ at the still there with me.
Yeah.
And really, when I went on my own, it was just like, now this isn't anyone's faith but yours. And I really felt that when I was at Purdue, because you got to go to church by yourself.
Right.
You're not going, like, no one's going with you. You're going by yourself. And really felt myself, I found a really good pastor, Joe Bell at Calvary Chapel in, is it Lafayette? But it was, anyway, in Indiana. Found it, myself, and then my now wife and I, when we went to Michigan State the year after that. It really built up some really good habits, and finding out why, these things are important. But then now when we came back and building a family and just realizing, like, this is on me now, as a man, head of the household, father, husband. Like, I can't just be like, well, my mom and dad took me to church and that's good enough. Like, it's on me to keep that going.
When you came here full time in 2016, I think you said, was when you got here, and you've had a lot of success since, when you think about the titles, and you've had a hand in all of them, one way or another. Was there any hesitation when you're getting called from your mom, I presume, is calling you and saying, come work with me, son? That's interesting. It's a dynamic of, you're an assistant coach and the head coach is your mother. I'm wondering what that was like early on when you first came here as a full-time assistant. Was there even a hesitation of saying yes to that, but then just kind of growing into the role that you're in now?
Yeah, I was blessed enough to have my wife. We were engaged, but she came with me to be our volunteer. So I remember on the interview, and our then assistant, she's now at Oregon, Missy Lombardi, sitting on the interview with her and Coach. I call my mom Coach, right? So, but I'm sitting on the interview with them, and I just remember thinking, like, I was literally just at regionals with them. I flew to Tuscaloosa to watch as, family. I was like, am I ready? I don't know if I'm ready for this. Like, this is a lot. Because I was at Michigan State, and we were having a little bit more success, but it was still, we were still trying to build something. And now, let's step in and, hey, you're at OU. But I just remember thinking, like, this just doesn't happen. The way that this opens up, it just doesn't happen. So I knew that there was a reason for me transitioning how I did, and God called me to be in Norman. I just really felt that, and it just worked out the way that it did. I had a ton of support with my wife being an assistant with me, but I remember we lost our first 2 games, my first ever, and it was just like a fiasco from that whole weekend, because we had our BP nets. We didn't bring the right equipment. The lights shut off on us while we were taking BP the night before. People were complaining about the BP pitcher, and then we got shut out game 1, and then we got smacked game 2. And I remember thinking, like, I'm gonna get fired. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm not gonna last a year.
Yeah.
But our season, we ended up being fine, and it was all good. So, but yeah, there was that doubt, hesitation there for a little bit, but it just kind of went the course and did our thing.
You call your mom Coach.
Yeah.
Do you call her Coach when you're spending time at Thanksgiving or Christmas?
No.
She's still mom there.
Yeah,
but when you're here, she's Coach.
Yeah, because this is one thing that she really harps on a ton is professionalism. And my big thing is, and I tell our players this, like, you don't know her as my mom, you know her as Coach. So I'm not going to have your view of her change just because I want to call her mom or whatever. So I like to think of it like in that sense of just being respectful of her and calling her Coach, because that's what everyone else is doing, and she's earned that, obviously. So I just try and, like, stay in my lane, not, be the the guy that's my mom. This is my mom. It just kind of gets we're way too old to be doing that.
No,
stuff.
completely
It
understand.
worked when I was like 8, 9 years old,
Right.
and I know what it looks like. So I know I don't want to be that kid.
But your kids can call her grandma anytime they want,
for
right?
for sure. Yeah.
They don't have to call her
for
coach.
Sure.
What's the best lesson that you've been able to take with you as a coach that you learned from your mom?
It wasn't until I think a little bit later, but it's going to sound very crazy, but that this stuff just doesn't matter in a sense. In the trophies and the winning and the this and the that and the accolades, because and I'll never forget this, in 2016 I was with my wife and we won, and we did the celebration, and it was great. It was just like, we are like kings, right? Yeah. And then you go to bed, you wake up the next day, and you're like, it's all over. The fans that were there are no longer there. The media is not following you around. They're like, it's over. We're not playing anymore. So, it literally hit me like year one. I was like, no one's gonna treat you like that, in a sense. Like, we're working towards our 17th season. In our 16th season, no one's gonna be like, man, that was a great season you had last year, and because all it's a new season, it's new everything. You just keep moving forward. So I think that was the biggest lesson, was to not get wrapped up in it, because this stuff doesn't define me. If I do let it define me, then I know that I'm not living how Christ is calling us to live, because I'm living for idols. I'm living for other things other than what we're supposed to keep our minds on.
One of the questions we asked your mom is one I'm going to ask you. Like, how does this happen? How does this program over 27 years, really over the last 10, win 5 championships with faith, so ingrained in the culture in such a powerful way? How does that happen? When you look back, can you pinpoint moments of how this really began to take shape into the DNA of what this team is today?
I honestly, I think that it is so old school, we're so old school in the way that we go about our stuff, that was the norm 20 years ago. You show up, put your hard hat on, you clock in, you do work, you leave, and then that's it, right? Like, you go through this process. And I think what is great about, we get to the end of the season, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure, or what perceived as pressure, but at the end of the day, like, you don't, let's say you lose, you win or lose, you don't get extra points in your faith scoreboard. Yeah. You get to heaven, and God's not going to say, you did win in 16 and 17, so that does erase this stuff over here. And so I think when we get to the end, and we're putting the focus on something that's higher and bigger than ourselves, it makes the game seem that much easier, in the sense of, like, you get to have fun, you get to just play, and you don't have to worry about, well, what if I don't? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you fail. It doesn't matter if you succeed. Like, you're still the same that you are when you started and when you end it.
Last question for me. When you look at this program and you think about moments of players who came in, one of the players we talked to said she was lukewarm, very immature as a freshman, as a person, but also as a person of faith. And you see somebody come through the program and grow. Your mom talked about this too, about growing, and she could care less. She said it too, about titles and who they are as softball people. If they have, they hit 500 and hit 50 homers or whatever. She's talking about souls and about the people that they can be when they leave this program. For you, when you see it, now that you've been in this for a while, what is it about that side of it to see these young ladies, these girls, if you will, when they first come in, become young women and grow in their faith and mature and be leaders and be, even in some cases, discipleship makers? Well, how does that make you feel as a coach?
I mean, it makes me feel like this big, which is in the best way.
I know what you mean,
right? In the best way, because it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about the stuff that I'm like, if I'm working with hitters and it's like, yeah, we need to get 5 hits to make sure we're like, one, I don't think like that, right? But in the sense of like, if I kept that my own selfish, like, hey, well, let's hit good so I can, it's so off the overall goal, like what we're called to be. And I'll never forget in 16 and 17 watching people raise their hands up and seeing people quoting Bible verses and seeing on their shirts, and I'm just thinking, like, sitting there like, I'm such a small piece in the overall scheme of things, like, it is great. And so I mean, that's kind of where I want to feel that from the softball side, that if I'm working hard, I'm doing all these things, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like this big compared to what, probably more like that big compared to what everything else is
Well, it's a
on.
great way to look at our lives when you think about the grand plan that God has. We're about this little tiny piece.
Right.
We all have a role, but God's the one who's really orchestrating it, and we're just here to kind of be the best stewards of that we can. Thanks, JT Gasso.
Yeah.
Great to talk to you,
Yeah,
buddy.
it's
This
fun.
has been awesome, and I appreciate you. Continued success, and hopefully we'll talk to you again down the road.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for watching today on Sports Spectrum. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos. And if you want more stories on sports and faith, check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.